One of the nation's largest home builders' cancellation rate has spiked to 68% in the fourth quarter, and this builder has several communities in our area. I'll tell you all about it. Hi, I'm Jessica Genung with the Genung team and Active Realty. KB Homes has released their 2022 fourth quarter results report that we are going to be looking at because it contains some very interesting insights, and we're going to be reviewing this Fortune.com article that summarizes some of the findings. The most interesting finding being here. So on Wednesday, KB Homes announced that its buyer cancellation rate in the fourth quarter of 2022 spiked to 68%. That's up from 35% in the fourth quarter of 2022 and up 13% in the fourth quarter of 2021. They go on to say down here, historically speaking, a 68% cancellation rate is off the charts. Even during the darkest days of the 2008 era crash, the average builder cancellation rate only reached 47%. And they have this chart here. If you want to take a look at this increase in cancellations here is the COVID-19 recession in the, Q1 of 2020. So, and then as you can see, we are over here at 68%. KB Homes is attributing this high cancellation rate to the higher mortgage rates, persistent inflation, and an uncertain economy that is making home buyers more cautious since the middle of last year. So while all this is true, I have some additional opinions on why KB might have a particularly high cancellation rate. We'll talk about that later. Let's look at what they say in their 2022 fourth quarter results report. Starting with this quote here, where they say, in the fourth quarter, we prioritized delivering our large backlog and protecting our high margins, over taking steps to stimulate additional sales during the seasonally slower time frame. KB Homes has several communities throughout our valley, and I show their homes very regularly to my clients. I have definitely noticed that they are not offering the same level of incentives that I'm seeing other builders offer. KB's closing cost credits have been lower than most of the other builders. They are not seeming as negotiable on the price, and I'm not seeing the typical level of other incentives, such as including solar or offering design center credits as promotions. As they stated in the report, it has not been a priority for them to stimulate sales during the seasonally slower time frame. But that may change for KB as we head into the spring selling season. So let's go back and take a look at the Fortune.com article. KB says, depending on market dynamics and backlog levels in each community, we are getting more aggressive with our pricing ahead of the spring selling season in order to generate new orders. At the same time, with industry-wide deceleration in housing starts compared to a year ago, we are also pursuing reductions in direct construction costs and build times, which should help offset the impact of pricing adjustments we may take, KB Home told investors on Wednesday. When it comes to cutting home prices, KB Home is treading lightly. If word gets out, buyers already under contract could get frustrated and cancel their contracts. That reason, coupled with wanting to protect their comps, is why builders prefer to offer incentives like mortgage rate buydowns rather than to cut prices too much. In my business, this is in contrast to some of the other builders in my market, which adjusted to the market shift very quickly and offered buyer incentives right away as soon as the market shifted, which was about mid last year. The builders with the most discounting and incentives in my area last year when the market shifted were probably Richmond American and Lennar in my experience. By the way, I have a free webinar happening this Friday, January 20th on the 7 best ways to save money when buying a new construction home. The link for that is going to be available down below in the description. Also, while KB's 68% cancellation rate seems astronomical, they still had a very good year, 2022, and they still had a very profitable quarter, actually, from the looks. So we're going to go back to their report here. Our financial results for 2022 mark one of the biggest years in our company's history. Our top line growth of more than 20% and operating margin expansion to over 15% drove diluted earnings per share above $9, a greater than 50% increase year over year. As a result, we produced a year-end book value of $43.59 per share, a 27% improvement, said their chairman. And then if we jump down here, this is the 3 months ending November 30th, 2022, and these that we're comparing a year-over-year basis. So even in just those 3 months, revenue grew 16% to 1.94 billion. Homes delivered increased 3% to over 3,700, and the average selling price rose 13% to over 510,000, as you can see there. And then lastly, we're going to scroll down here. The company had total liquidity of 1.26 billion with 328.5 million of cash and cash equivalents and 933.4 million of available capacity under its unsecured revolving credit facility. With that much liquidity and cash, I can understand why they didn't feel the need to rush into big buyer incentives and discounting, such as what we saw with some of the other builders. So here is where I'm going to talk a little bit more about my opinion based on my experience with this builder in my market, because I feel 68% cancellation rate is too high compared to what I've been seeing in our local area. So here's my 2 cents. KB Homes in my market is probably the most budget-friendly builder, catering to like first-time home buyers and really budget-conscious buyers. So it makes sense to me that these more entry-level buyers might be more sensitive to the increases in the rates that we saw last year, maybe pushing a percentage of them over their budgets, or maybe where they were no longer able to qualify for the loans. Let's look at one more article just to put it into some perspective. Pulte Capital CEO Bill Pulte told Fox Business's Maria Bartiromo on Thursday that the KB home cancellation rate was through the roof, something like 68%, which is just enormous. Usually that number is around 10, at most 20%. So interesting to hear from Pulte Capital that the normal cancellation rate should be around 10 to 20%. My sense is that KB might have a higher than normal cancellation rate anyway. This is based on my clients that have purchased KB homes and from my many times of showing their communities. Their sales reps seem to have a little bit more aggressive style of sales that might be reflective of their sales training. I recognize some of these techniques because of sales training that I had at a property management company that I used to work for in Orange County. I'll tell you the story. This property management job was one of my first jobs out of college, where I was leasing apartments, and I was pretty quickly promoted in about 6 months to the on-site property manager for a 250 unit apartment complex. Maybe promoted a little too quickly, which might have been a sign. I was probably, 25 years old or so. Anyways, this property management company had a required sales process, which required what I call hard closing and trial closes, tactics such as communicating a sense of urgency in making a decision and asking for the deposit, sometimes more than once. I hated this style of sales and have learned that not only is it awkward and too pushy for my style, but it leads to a higher cancellation rate. In my experience, the hard close can be effective in getting an initial lease application and deposit, but it has a very high cancellation rate when people feel an urgency to move forward when they aren't 100% ready. So what's the point? Anyway, we were secretly shopped pretty regularly, and the employees that handled the tours and the leases had to go through their sales steps. Otherwise, you would likely get a bad shopper report. Now, the KB Homes communities are not as pushy as this property management company I was working for, but as I mentioned, I do see some of these techniques, and they almost always mention the deposit or ask my clients if they're ready to leave a deposit before I even get the sense that they're ready to move forward with the home. I don't have to ask my clients if they're ready to move forward on a home. They will let me know when they're ready. My personal sales style, if you could even call it that, is not salesy at all. It's rather simple. I just try to help people do what they already want to do. I never try to convince folks to do anything. I provide information and advise, and the client ultimately makes the decision. And when my clients' plans change, which happens a lot in real estate because timelines and life plans change, and sometimes better homes come available on the market, it is zero problem at all. We adjust our plans as well, and then we try to help them with the new plan, and that has served us well. Given my perception of the KB sales training, would I still recommend them as a builder? Would I recommend KB to my clients? Yes, I would. Absolutely. I think it just helps when you know what to expect. There is a new KB community in Wildomar that I'm especially excited about, which is near where I live in West Murrieta. It's all single-story homes, and there are some great elevated view lots. I love a lot with some elevation, and the homes in this community, they're built on a gentle hillside with some nice opportunities for some unobstructed views. The community also has nice access to the 15 freeway. My most recent clients that purchased KB homes were quite happy. The process after getting into escrow through the closing of the home was very smooth and better than typical. One of my clients bought a model home. That was a quick escrow, about 30 days, I think. And the last client to buy from a dirt stage lot with KB, I was particularly impressed with the sales rep. She would email my client every week or two with updates on the progress of construction and pictures. This is something I try to do for my clients about once a month that are buying new construction homes, but this sales rep went above and beyond and made my job a lot easier. My client loved it because they were military and they were serving overseas in Japan, so the picture updates were key. Did I see this level of cancellations in our local market in the fourth quarter? No. Not only do I think KB did not have this high a level of cancellations in our local area, I don't think the other builders had anywhere near that level either, in my experience. There was certainly an increase in cancellations, and homes and phases were not selling like they were when the market was really hot, and we started to see for the first time in a long time some really nice buyer incentives. That big push that I saw by the builders to sell homes when the market shifted in the summer and the early fall has simmered down from what it was with big incentives and price drops. The current incentives and price reductions are still there, but not as dramatic as a few months ago. It seems that the previous promotions were effective in selling through the high priority inventory. I will be going into more detail on some of these incentives and promotions and price discounting that we've been seeing at some of these communities in my webinar that I mentioned, which is on Friday. Links down below in the description if you want to sign up for that. It is free. That wraps it up for this video, and we'll see you next week. Bye.